and welcome to Weather and Climate Chat. Happy New Year from Weather and Climate Chat 2020. Monsoon Mike here and Dr. Michael Davis.
Good to be back in the new year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, it was good. We basically stayed local, didn't go anywhere. Noah enjoyed his Christmas.
Good. Well, welcome to a new year. Are you looking forward to another great semester with your students?
Yeah, I'm doing 2 physical geography sessions, and I'm doing climatology and global warming and the science of climate change.
Good. So full semester, busy semester for you, for me, and for everybody else. So welcome to a new year. And here we are with our weekly, or somewhat weekly, we try weekly, but it doesn't always work that way, chat of what's going on in past, present, and future weather, and also some climate topics. And since we last convened before Christmas, so much going on in both local and especially international happenings. We'll get to that shortly. But for now, December started. We'll back up since we haven't talked in about a month. December started pretty wintry, a lot of cold air, but then second half of December and first part of January, winter's kind of been taking a little break, Dr. Davis.
Yeah, we really haven't seen too much in the way of cold air coming down.
Yeah.
You and I were looking off air at the Arctic Oscillation, how it's positive right now. So you have more of the winds toward the pole that's actually keeping the colder air locked in place. So we really haven't seen too many really sharp cold air outbreaks. Usually if it's negative phase, then you get the more waves in the actual jet stream, which then allows colder air to come down.
And looking at some of the 1-2 week model temperature trends, there'll be some little, dips in temperature over the coming 2 weeks, but generally it looks to be next 15 days leaning above normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially come this weekend when we're supposed to be well above normal.
Yeah. We normal for this time of year is what, Dr. Davis, about 39?
I'm looking up right now.
Yeah. I think somewhere around 39, I believe. I can also check as well, too. I know AccuWeather has a pretty good tool that gives you the normal highs and lows for your particular location. And it looks like the normal...
36.
36? Okay, you beat me to it.
At least in Allentown.
Yeah. Okay, the National Weather Service page is going off the Reading airport on the website that I'm on now, so it's a little warmer, so it's 38. But okay, so 36 to 38 basically is the normal high for this time of year, and maybe by Saturday we could be looking at around 61, says AccuWeather, so that would be a good...
20...
Almost pushing 25 degrees above normal.
Yes.
So that's pretty
very
impressive,
unusual, very anomalous for this time of year.
Mm-hmm. Not that it hasn't happened before. We remember a couple Christmases ago when people were barbecuing on Christmas Eve. Remember
yes.
That was even warmer than this. I think that was like 72. So not quite that warm, but definitely well above normal for where we should be. Between now and then, though, we actually do have a couple of little things to watch.
Do you think the AccuWeather 90-day forecast got this right?
Well, we'll get to that. We'll look at that in a second. But for now, we'll talk about. We have something coming. We're recording this on Tuesday, January 7th, and we have a little low pressure system that's going to be zipping in from the south. It's going to be giving our area a little bit of snow later today into tonight. Now with, temperatures above freezing now as we're recording this at 11 o'clock, temperatures are above freezing. So snow might have a little bit of a difficult time accumulating at first, but sort of like we had yesterday, could have a slushy accumulation in our area this evening.
Yeah, it doesn't look too much threatening, I should say. Most of the activity will be further toward our south, toward Philly and the Mason-Dixon line.
What's interesting about this storm, if we have any listeners in the Philadelphia area, I saw the National Weather Service talk about this in their discussion, is the NAM actually does put some heavy snow over Philly, like around 7 o'clock tonight. So, if it did come down hard enough and fast enough, that could be enough to cause some travel trouble around Philadelphia tonight.
Yeah, and that's why they put the winter weather advisory up, because winter weather advisories typically don't produce a lot in the way of heavy snows. They just make travel rather difficult.
Okay, so that's something to be on the out to look for tonight. Should be definitely out of here by about 10 o'clock. Tomorrow, Wednesday, something that we have to watch for is a similar setup to what we had a couple weeks ago before Christmas. You remember that one day when we had some snow squalls?
Yes.
And the NAM model and a couple other models are implying that there could be a couple of snow squalls or snow showers in the area tomorrow. So that could
based
be
on the northwesterly flow that we see on the map right now that you and I are looking at.
Yeah, and despite the extreme warmth that we're going to have this weekend, tomorrow is going to be the total opposite of that. Tomorrow might actually even be a little bit below normal temperature-wise, with temperatures only in the low 40s and a gusty wind up near 40 miles per hour. So 34 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour wind, and some snow showers. Yeah, you might want to be on the watch for a blinding snow squall or two tomorrow.
Because as this low moves out to sea, it's going to likely get enhanced by the warm Gulf Stream, which is then going to increase the pressure gradient and then make the stronger winds come down from the north, bringing down the colder air.
Right.
And then later on this coming week, when we get that low coming out of the Gulf, we're going to have the warm winds coming out of the south leading that, and that's what's going to help us push the temperature up.
Look at this crazy 48 hours, Dr. Davis. Thursday, high of 32. Friday, high of 47. Saturday, high of 60. So we go from a high of 32 to a high of 60 in the course of like 3 days.
48 hours, yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yep.
And the cold front does eventually, we're not going to stay 60 forever, folks, so don't break out the shorts just yet. It is going to cool down, but we're not talking about a major cool down. The cold air behind this front is kind of muted. So we're still going to be 50s and 40s, which is still above normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're still going to be a little bit warmer. That's why it looked like the Climate Prediction Center had us kind of more muted, if not taken away for the next month being above average.
Yeah.
Although the next week or two we were strongly above average.
Yeah, strongly above average, 6 to 10 day outlook, 8 to 14, still pretty strongly above average. 1 to 3 months, so maybe equal chances. So maybe there are implications that some of that cold air that's bottled up to our north might finally...
Because if you look at the Great Lakes,
yeah,
it's colder than
right
average. So it looks like the colder air will be coming out of the Great Lakes potentially.
So that might imply that some of that cold air that's been bottled up to our north does start to permeate to the south a little bit, making late January and February maybe a little more active than we've been. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll
see. Look like some type of colder air potentially coming down around the 18th, right around the start of the semester, but we'll see what happens.
Right. And I know some of the snow geeks out there are really getting quite distraught, saying it's over. But remember, it only takes, if you're a snow fan, it only takes one well-timed storm, to... What was that example you used off the air? What was it, 2016?
I think it was 2016.
We had absolutely nothing, and then we had 32
inches in one day. Yeah.
So
we got hit hard that day, and then you were talking about the 83.
83 was very similar as well, where it was in the 70s, I think, a week prior, and then we had one huge snowstorm in February, and then it was back to the 70s again, and it all melted. So
yeah, because we only have a fraction of the snowfall we should have for this time of year.
Yeah.
And I believe we're near almost 2-3 inches maybe for the year so far.
Yeah.
And that's well below our average, which I believe is about 12, 14, 16 inches.
Right. Keep in mind that we, as weather geeks, use meteorological winter, which is a little different from the winter that other people go by. So meteorological winter started on December 1st, so we're already halfway, a little over, just about halfway through meteorological winter. So
yes.
The 15th of January would be halfway through already. So, yeah, only 5% snow cover and halfway through meteorological winter. Yeah, if you're a snow fan, I can see why you are getting a little concerned. But, again, we still got several more weeks of interesting stuff coming up. I'm sure.
We really haven't hit the heart of winter yet.
Right.
February is when things get really interesting.
Okay. Well, we'll see where that goes. Hopefully we hit, being that I'm a snow fan, we have some activity coming up. Okay. Well, since there's not a huge bunch of stuff to talk about in our area, we have a lot of stuff to talk about nationally and especially worldwide. Biggest news story, I would say, the past couple of weeks, probably no doubt the Australia wildfires.
Yeah, they've been quite intense over the past month or so. And this came pretty much on the heels of the COP25, which was in Madrid. Mm-hmm. And you had a lot of widespread wildfires going on in Australia. We had very strong heat wave. And Australia is kind of an interesting case study, I would say, because They have a lot of climate skepticism and denial.
Do they? I did not know that.
In their particular country.
I didn't know that.
You had the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, who has tried to get climate activists labeled as domestic terrorists.
Really? I did not know that.
He went before Australian Parliament professing his love for coal and actually held up a lump of coal in the Parliament building. And one of his officials called the climate activists hippies. And the government told the students during the climate strikes to stay in school.
Wow.
And that pretty much encapsulates where the federal response has been, because it's been severely lacking, and you have a lot of justifiable anger, I would say, directed toward the government that they're failing to do anything about this. And if you look at a map of the size of Australia,
I saw that map.
It's roughly about the same size as the United States. And then if you look at where the wildfires are, they are pretty much covering most of Australia at this point, and that would pretty much cover most of the United States.
Right.
And the photos that you see coming out of there are very eerie, I would say, with the orange glow that you typically get because of all the particulate matter that's thrown into the atmosphere.
About 500 million animals have been killed or otherwise affected.
Yeah, so this is going to be a very destructive component to the ecosystem and the welfare of the citizens of Australia. And it's going to be interesting to see how they rebound and what stance they start to take on climate change. In the past week or two, it has seemed like they've softened a bit on climate change, but they still seem pretty much entrenched in that these fires are not linked to the burning of fossil fuels and man-made activities.
I did not realize that they had a leader down there who is kind of lockstep with our leader denying climate change.
And in the past, Australia has had a lot of mixed reviews on climate analysis. Like, for instance, the CSIRO, the equivalent of NASA in Australia, the government laid off half their employees, and most of them were in climate science fields.
Right.
They also opened up the Carmichael coal plant, which is the largest coal mine in the world right now.
Wow.
And Australia is among the largest exporters of coal in the world.
Wow.
And while they don't have, the government claims that they don't have a large footprint of carbon, but per capita Australia is near the top in the amount of carbon that's put out.
Wow.
I believe they're number 6, if I'm not mistaken.
That's still significant.
And you have this almost paralleling the United States in terms of where our government is and where our stance is found. So to me, it seems almost like a harbinger of things that could potentially come to the United States.
Right.
So we need to start embracing the science and moving forward on trying to get ahead of this before we become or see a situation similar to what we're seeing in Australia.
Now, you're obviously following this even a little closer than me, at least from the inside of things. Obviously, here in the United States, we have a lot of grassroots efforts, sort of like the climate strike that that was on campus a couple of months ago. Is that kind of stuff going on amongst the youth in Australia as well, too? Or are there college students that are rallying?
Yeah, there's the youth that have been rallying, but they face significant headwinds just like we do here in the United States.
Yep. Okay. Wow. And, what's going on in Australia, let's not forget about the Amazon is still on fire. I mean, the media has sort of forgotten that story.
Well, most of the major fires are out, but there's probably some small bits that are on fire based on illegal logging or clearing of the forest.
Right.
The other thing with Australia, too, is they had a cold front that came through.
Yeah, I saw they finally had some rain and they were like dancing in the streets. Yeah.
But that also resulted in a wind shift. So then the forest fires that were going one direction, then all of a sudden changed direction, and now they have an entirely new forest to burn. Wow. So while that was beneficial in the short term, whether or not that's going to pay off in the long run is somewhat uncertain.
Wow.
And you also had Indonesia, And Jakarta, for instance, that have had thousands displaced due to flooding. In fact, I think I read somewhere where it hasn't stopped raining in 16 days.
Wow.
In Jakarta. And the Indonesian government is actually moving their capital from Jakarta because it's sinking. And essentially, you're getting this massive flooding.
Wow.
And it's a megacity, so it has, I believe, 10 million or more. I forget how that's classified,
Right.
but people living within Jakarta, so they're going to have to move.
See, and that's the kind of thing that
At some
sometimes
point.
media, we get overtaken. We got all this stuff going on in Iran now, and we got the wildfires in Australia, and then we have a story like that's kind of not really getting a whole lot of publicity because of all these other things that are happening. But 10 million people are affected by
And
that.
you have a lot of tropical moisture, if not a tropical system, moving into northwestern Australia.
Oh, wow.
So you're getting flooding and burning going on at the same time in Australia.
Wow, unbelievable! A lot of stuff going on. So, well, hey, it's what we always say. I mean, really, the best way that we can remain proactive with this is, just doing what voting in the right people, and staying
Talking about it,
being aware of it, and
pressuring
certain
government
leaders,
officials
right?
to take action.
Right, because sometimes we can feel helpless in situations like this, but we're not totally helpless at this point. We have the tools to make things happen.
Yes, and now with it being 2020, and if you go back to the IPCC's
Right.
Special report, when
Right.
they said we had until 2030,
Right.
we now have 10 more years.
Right. So it keeps getting less and less.
And some would argue that we don't have 10 more years, we have about 11 more months, because that's when the presidential election will take place.
Well, that's true,
and
too.
you can't just simply change on a dime to
That's right.
a renewable future. You need time
You need
to
time to set that up.
get the right people in place to make sure that quick transition that needs to occur can take place smoothly.
So, and I don't want to throw too many topics in here at one time, but we haven't talked in a while, so I'll just throw this out there one more time. We are in 2020 now. This is a huge election year. We're only a couple of weeks away from the first states that are going to be voting. Anybody that's standing out to you at this point? We had talked about this a little bit last year. Inslee was your number one guy, but he dropped out. Who's standing out to you right now that's keeping climate as an important topic?
Bernie.
Okay.
Bernie's pretty much pushing the whole environmental agenda, I would say,
Good.
at this point. He's got the strongest ideas as platforms dealing with climate change. There are others out there that have a pretty good one, like Elizabeth Warren, for instance, has one. Biden, not so much.
We've talked about that.
And there are others that are out there, but they could do better, I would say. They're adequate in some respect, but not to the level that we need to be at this point.
Right.
Because we've lost the time to transition.
Right.
Slowly, we need to move rapidly toward decarbonization.
Right.
And if you don't have a plan that in place that deals with how to go with renewables and get to decarbonization as quickly as possible, you're just putting a Band-Aid on the dam.
Right. Hey, that's a very good analogy right there. Band-Aid on the dam. Well, we'll just stay abreast of what's going on over the coming weeks, and like you said, not put a Band-Aid on the dam, and try to keep our nose to the rail here and see where it goes.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens in Iowa about whether or not the voters want to side with climate change.
Iowa and New
don't
Hampshire
forget,
the first
earlier
states.
This year, Iowa had massive flooding, or earlier last year.
That's a good point.
And some of the farm fields were a good 8 to 12 feet below the water level.
That's a good point.
So if you can't plant any crops because the whole field is flooded, then your corn, your wheat, your soybeans, whatever you're trying to grow, is not going to go into the ground fast enough, so you're going to have a poor return, and then that's going to drive prices up, and then your crops don't do as well. There's research out there showing that climate change is going to decrease the nutritional value of crops, especially in rice.
Sure.
And
I could see that.
That poses a health effect too to the general population.
It's one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another.
That's why climate change is seen as the ultimate kind of magnifier or amplifier of negative impacts, because it just seems to affect pretty much everything. And if you don't deal with that multiplier, then you're making a very foolish mistake.
Well, and speaking of your guy Bernie, I think he even went as far to say, and I would dare to say correctly say that climate change can even impact war, like conflict, like international conflict.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Because then you have things like water availability, water scarcity. There's research out there showing that warmer temperatures make us more hostile, more aggressive, more standoffish. So in which case, if we increase temperatures, then you're going to make people more agitated.
Yep.
And especially in places like, say, Syria or in Mexico or Central America, the whole corridor going down there, it's seen drought. Most of the society is agrarian, so they have grown crops for most of their life, and then if farming fails, they have to find employment or some other sorts to subsidize their family. So that means going into cities.
Right.
And ultimately, if they don't have a lot of money to begin with, you're going to go into lower income areas, more of the slums, where you're going to have more people packed into one another. There's going to be more anger toward that particular government that may be lacking in the ideas that they're trying to put forth. Then you lead to things like radicalization or gang violence, which then results in mass migration. That's what we've been seeing across the southern border from Syria going into, say, Turkey, or trying to ultimately get to Europe.
Wow.
So it really has this geopolitical destabilization effect to it.
Wow. That's why I always say the climate is our number one topic.
Yes,
so
it certainly is.
All right. Well, on that note, Dr. Davis, we've gone like 22 minutes, so we'll end here. We will be back hopefully next week with another edition. If not, hopefully sometime very soon. And once again, Happy New Year. It's going to be a very impactful year for sure. And some of the decisions that we make this year will potentially, be sealing our fate. Not to be overly dramatic, but this really is true. So,
yes.
So, all right, Dr. Davis, thanks so much for being a part of the show. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.